Chapter 11. The Island Trick. If you have a complaint to make, the lieutenant will take it. Over at that desk, a sergeant told the complaining man. He calmed down a bit and directed his remarks to the chief. In a bitter voice, he revealed that his wallet had been snatched while he was standing in the front of a store. He had shouted for a policeman. The officer had arrested a man who immediately established his innocence. Shortly afterward, the wallet, empty, had been found in an alley. "You can bet the thief had an accomplice," the angry victim declared. "When the policeman came on the run, I heard someone in the crowd whistle as if in warning." "You did not see the person who whistled?" "No, I didn't." The lieutenant promised he would do what he could and made a routine report. After the indignant man had left headquarters, the officer gazed rather apologetically at Nancy. "What can we do?" he asked with a shrug. "Money can't be traced unless the bills were marked or the serial numbers recorded." Chief McGinnis said, "Nancy, I believe you'll have to turn your talents to this case." There was a twinkle in the eyes of the good-natured officer. "Too busy today," she joked in return. Homeward bound, Nancy began to wonder whether this latest theft had been committed by the same man who had stolen her father's wallet and who was responsible for the purse snatchings in River Heights. "Somehow I must recover the money for the boys' club and the valuable papers Dad lost," she thought resolutely. "This afternoon I'll be at Helen's picnic for Catherine. Maybe tomorrow a new clue will come my way." The young people were to go by motorboat far up the river to Star Island. The outing promised to be an especially enjoyable one. Ned Nickerson came for Nancy in his car. Upon reaching the dock, the couple found that the other picnickers had arrived ahead of them. Ned's college friend, Bob Dutton, escorted Catherine. George Fain and an athletic young man, Bert Eddleton, had come together, and Bess had brought her favorite date, Dave Evans. "Everyone is here," Helen declared, counting all of her guests, who numbered 12. 2 motorboats, to be operated by Jim Archer and Ned, had been rented for the outing. The passengers were divided between the crafts, and Jim started off. The ropes of Ned's craft were about to be cast off when a shout came from shore. "Hey, wait a minute!" Francis Baum ran to the dock, followed by his dog. Thinking that he might have a message for her from his grandmother, Nancy asked Ned to wait. In a low voice, she told him that the newcomer was Mrs. Alexandra's grandson. "What's up? A boat trip?" the prince demanded as he reached the group. "You guessed it," Ned answered shortly. "How about taking me along?" "The boats are filled now. Otherwise," Dave started to say. "Oh, you can make room for me," Michael insisted, jumping aboard and squeezing in between Nancy and Bess. The dog also leaped into the craft. Before he could be made to lie down, he had put his dirty paws on Bess's beige slacks, soiling them badly. "Oh!" she cried out. "Hey, pitch that beast out on the dock," Ned ordered. "We're not going to take him." Nancy was concerned that Mrs. Alexandra might be hurt if the prince told her about the boy's attitude. She nudged Ned, and he became silent. She now presented Michael to the group, being careful not to reveal the identity of Mrs. Alexandra. "Why don't you tell your friends I'm really Prince Michael?" he urged. "It's not everybody who has a queen for a grandmother." Those in the group who did not know the story looked at him in amusement. They thought he was joking, and Nancy made no comment. "How did you know about our picnic?" she asked quietly. "I didn't," he said with a grin. "I just happened to be walking my dog down here. Lucky, wasn't it?" No one replied. As they edged away from the dock, a sleek speedboat cruised past. Beside its driver, who was a sad-faced young man, sat a little boy. Michael ducked low. Is he afraid of being seen by that other man? Nancy asked herself. As the trip proceeded, Bess, Ned, and their friends paid little attention to Michael. They had started singing. Nancy, crowded by the dog, presently climbed over the seat and perched herself on the afterdeck of the boat. "Lots of room back here," she shouted. The others continued to sing and did not join her. She became interested in watching the speedboat, which was about to pass them again. It was not until the channel buoy had been rounded that Bess glanced over her shoulder. Then she screamed, "Stop the boat, Ned! Quickly! Nancy's gone! She must have fallen overboard!" Ned swung the motorboat in a wide arc, while the worried young people looked across the water. They saw a figure swimming some distance away. "It's Nancy!" cried Bess, pointing. "She's holding up a little boy!" Another boat also was speeding toward the scene. Ned, however, was the first to reach Nancy. Many hands pulled her and the little boy aboard. Immediately he began to cry. "You're all right," Nancy said, putting her arms around him and hugging him close to her. Between sobs, the boy said, "Mr. Ellington's going to scold me for falling off his boat." Both Nancy and Ned hastened to console the boy. "Oh, no! He knows it was just an accident that could happen to anybody." "Look, here is your boat now," Nancy said as it drew alongside. "That's Mr. Ellington," the boy said, pointing to the handsome man at the wheel. The man looked frightened as he realized by what a narrow margin a tragedy had been averted. "You had him before I knew he was overboard," he said shakily. "If anything had happened to Buddy Farrell, I couldn't have faced his parents," he declared. "He's the son of the superintendent of the apartment house where I live." Buddy was handed over to Mr. Ellington. As the two boats separated, Nancy remarked that the sad-faced young man seemed very nice. "Too stiff to suit me," cut in Michael. "Mr. Ellington is a talented commercial artist," said Catherine. "I see some of his drawings at an exhibit. He sell them, I think, to magazines. Helen say he will be at the fashion show, and I must make impression on him." "What is his first name?" Nancy asked. "I do not know. He sign all his drawings R.H. Ellington." Star Island soon came into view, and the boat was tied to a dock near a sandy beach. Helen and Jim's group already had arrived. All the young men except Michael offered to carry the picnic hampers to a spot among the trees. Nancy introduced Michael to the others, then said, "Let's go for a swim." "The prince will have a chance to show us his skill," Ned added. Michael smiled in a superior way. "Sorry, I didn't bring swim trunks." "I'll let you have mine," Jim offered. "We're about the same size." "No, thank you," the young man declined. "I never wear anybody else's clothing." The others felt certain that he was giving these lame excuses because he was a poor swimmer. While they dived and raced in a sheltered cove, he amused himself by throwing sticks into the water for his dog to retrieve. "Can't you play that little game somewhere else?" Ned demanded crossly. "So sorry," Michael replied, but he kept on throwing sticks in the swimming area. "I've had my fill of that guy," Ned muttered. "So have I," added Bob Dutton. Out of earshot of Nancy, they formed a plan to be put into effect if Michael should annoy them any more. The young people decided to dress. Nancy's clothes had dried. The girls were ready first and began to set out the lunch. Michael took several sandwiches for his dog without asking permission. "I wish those boys would hurry," Helen said after 15 minutes had gone by. Presently the youths turned up, broad grins on their faces. Nancy suspected they were up to some trick. As the food was passed, it became evident that the prince had not learned anything about good manners from his association with his grandmother. He was as greedy as ever. "Michael," said Ned, addressing him abruptly, "will you do us a favor?" "What is it?" Michael asked suspiciously. "Catherine left her coat in the motorboat. Dash down and get it for her," Ned replied, giving the girl a wink. The young man considered a moment and then smiled at Catherine. "I'll do it for you, but when I get back, I'll expect a reward." "You'll get it," Ned promised. As Michael started toward the beach with his dog, Nancy glanced questioningly at Ned. Instantly, the boys arose and hurriedly stuffed the remaining food into the hampers. "We pulled the motorboats to another dock," he explained. "Here's where we leave Prince Charming." "Come on," Ned urged. "A ferry boat touches Star Island every 2 hours. His Highness can get home on that." Nancy felt that they should not desert the young man, but was overruled. Keeping out of sight, the young people slipped down to the dock and boarded the 2 boats. The roar of the motors brought Michael sprinting madly along the beach. "Hey, wait for me!" he shouted. "Can't hear you," Bob called through cupped hands. "Louder!" Michael shouted again and again. Finally, as the boats sped away, he slumped down on the beach. "It was a mean trick," Nancy began, but Ned interrupted her. "He deserved it. Don't waste any of your sympathy on him. Save it for Mrs. Alexandra." When the young people reached River Heights, they all went to a movie. The next morning, Nancy dropped in to see Mr. Faber about her father's birthday gift. The antique dealer said, "I think I have found just the right gentleman's box for Mr. Drew." He showed her a handsome brown leather chest trimmed with silver. "It's beautiful," she said, and lifted the lid. "And in wonderful condition," she added, gazing at the velvet-lined trays for jewelry. "I hope your father likes it," he said anxiously. "Madame Alexandra asked me to make a special effort to please him." "How nice of her!" Nancy exclaimed. "Have you seen her recently?" "No, but Michael was here early this morning." "Michael?" "Yes, he brought me a ring to sell for Madame Alexandra." Mr. Faber's face became troubled. "I gave her the best price I could, but it worries me that she must sell her treasures." "Maybe Prince Michael is an expensive grandson to have," Nancy remarked. "Ah, yes," Mr. Faber said with concern. "It is a pity Madam can deny him nothing." When Nancy reached home, Mrs. Gruen gave her an urgent message from Anna. "She called twice," the housekeeper said. "Mrs. Alexandra is very troubled. Anna wants you to come at once." "Of course I'll go," Nancy agreed. I wonder if Michael had anything to do with her condition. A few minutes later, she arrived at the Downey Street home and asked Anna if he had been the cause of Mrs. Alexandra's agitation. "I don't see how Michael can be responsible," the maid replied. "He has been away most of the morning." "He was at Mr. Faber's," Nancy said. "I thought maybe his selling the ring for Mrs. Alexandra might have upset her." "Michael sold a ring for Madame Marie?" Anna's eyes opened wide at this bit of news. "Didn't you know about it?" Nancy asked. "I certainly did not," Anna returned with displeasure. "If I had known, but now it is too late. Madame Marie has spent money most lavishly the past couple of days." "Is Michael here now?" Nancy asked. "He came in about 10 minutes ago," the woman replied. "He tied up that dog of his and went off somewhere. He was in a dreadful mood." "Did he tell you what had disturbed him?" "Only that some acquaintances of his had left him stranded on an island yesterday," Anna continued. "A fisherman took him off in a small boat. He had to row part of the way to shore and blistered his hands." I am glad it happened, Anna declared, her black eyes flashing. Michael will require many lessons to make a gentleman of him. May I see Mrs. Alexandra now? Nancy asked. As the two started upstairs, the dog began to bark. The disturbance was so loud that Nancy and Anna hastened to a window to see what was wrong. To their dismay, the huge animal had broken the rope and was attacking the mailman. "Oh, oh!" moaned Anna, covering her eyes. Nancy ran out the front door, determined to help the man. Her eye fell on the garden hose ready for use on the lawn. Unable to reach the faucet to turn on the water, she seized the hose and tried to lash at the dog. "Run!" she shouted. The mailman scrambled into the vestibule, his uniform ripped from the knees down. Nancy whirled and faced the animal defiantly. With a snarl, he made a leap for her face. End of chapter 11.